You've probably seen some marketing advice that says it's super important to use storytelling to bring in clients. But how do you actually put it in action, and what does it actually look like? That's exactly what we're diving into in today's Cozypreneur episode. Welcome back to another episode of the Cozypreneur podcast. If this is your first time listening, Cozypreneur is all about helping you make money and work with the dreamiest of clients. So grab your beverage, get your cozy socks on, and let's dive in. Okay, so why storytelling? Storytelling builds an emotional connection, and you are going to remember a story much more than you will remember a list of random facts. So, for example, say you're looking at somebody's website. If they tell a story, you're probably going to remember that story versus if there's like a list of deliverables, you're probably not going to remember the list of deliverables. And so that story that brings out the emotional connection is also going to help build your trust faster because people are going to get to know you. They're going to build a personal connection with you. And you can also show using story how you can best support them. So instead of like telling them like, hey, these are the results I'm going to get you, you can use the story to really show the impact, the transformation, and that's going to leave a stronger impression on your people who are reading. So there are two parts that go into storytelling. The first is the big picture transformation, your client's experience. And then the second is specific relatable moments that bring it to life. So let's talk about like the big picture, the macro storytelling, which is really your customer journey. And so if you have studied like creative writing or something like that, you might have heard of the hero's journey. And if you don't know it, you can Google it. It's pretty common, but it's a basic framework for stories that you see in movies, in fairy tales, wherever. It's repeatable, right? It's a framework. And so basically behind the scenes of the framework is you have your hero. They're living their life, doing things as they normally would, but something happens and there's a call to action where they realize that there's a problem. And if you've been in my world for a while, you probably are like, okay, Stacy, this sounds familiar, right? Because your story starts with what problems are your dream clients experiencing? So they have a problem and they aren't necessarily super motivated to do anything. There's not necessarily any urgency yet until something changes. And what happens in the hero's framework is they meet a mentor who helps them along their journey. And then after they meet the mentor, they embark on this journey. They face some challenges, their trials and tribulations, and then finally they make it back to their regular life, but with some changes, right? So either lessons learned or they were able to save the princess and fall in love, whatever it is, they go back to regular life, but something changed. And the thing that changed is the transformation. So maybe they became a better person, they found their true love, they made more money in business, whatever it is that they changed through their journey, that's the transformation. So when you look at your business, your potential clients, they are the heroes of the story and you are centering them in the story, right? So people say your marketing is not about you, it's about your ideal client. And so your role in the story is that of the mentor guiding them through the journey. And if this is something that you're like, I want to learn more about this, Building a Story Brand by Donald Miller is a great book to really dig into these concepts. But basically, when you think about the messaging framework, and if you haven't listened to the messaging framework episode, go back and do that. It's one of the first 3, I believe. All right. So when you think about your messaging framework, you start with problem awareness, then solution awareness, product awareness, and those all align with the hero's framework story. So when you think about it and you're thinking about problem awareness, where's your ideal client at the beginning of the story? What are the problems that they're facing? What is going to finally make them take action to begin their journey? So what's holding them back? And then what is it that is going to create that internal urgency so that they are like, oh, you know what? I actually do want to solve this problem. I want to embark on this journey and this is the right time and this is why it's the right time. So are you able to communicate that in your messaging when you are telling the story of your dream clients. You can talk about what are some of the challenges that they might have already faced or they will face as a result of taking action. And you, as the mentor in their story, right, you kind of know what are the challenges, what are the trials and tribulations that they're going to face because you've seen other clients do it. You've maybe been there yourself. And so you can speak to those challenges and you can speak to what are the things that are holding you back? What are the things that you should consider when you embark on this journey? And then finally, what is it that they want at the end of the story? How can you help them get there? And what is your role as the mentor in supporting the journey of your hero, right? And so when you think about all of this stuff, you don't have to fit the entire story in one post, right? You can spread it out. That's your overarching story. It's threaded through all of your content. It's the story of your dream clients. And when you get really good at telling this story of showing like where they are now, where they can end up, and how your role as the mentor can help you get there, that's when you're going to start having really clear messaging that's going to capture the attention of the people you actually really want to work with. So that's kind of the overarching idea, right? So your audience member, whoever's reading your stuff, they are experiencing something. They're going to go through this whole hero's journey. You are the mentor that's going to help them through, and it's your job to let them know exactly what it's going to look like and how they're going to get from point A to point B. And then the other side of this is you have micro storytelling. So micro storytelling is when you focus on little specific moments. So if you are thinking about your overarching story as like a full-length movie, micro storytelling is going to be a specific moment, like a 30-second scene, something that you can describe in detail and really make sure that people are feeling like they're in the moment with you. And so this is really like focusing on the details, painting a picture, show not tell. I used to teach show not tell in second grade. And it's so funny because it's like, while that's something that you learn in second grade, like it's still something that I forget about and my coach corrects me on because it's so easy to be like, you know what? And she was mad versus like, and I could see her face turning red and her fists curling up and her eyebrows furrow, right? So there's the difference between like she was mad and hey, here's this description. I didn't actually have to tell you she was mad, but based on what was going on, I know that she's mad. And so that's something that in your business, instead of saying like the software is going to change your business or change your life, talk about how is it going to change? What is that actually going to look like? Now I have my second grade teacher hat on and I'm like, another strategy that I used to teach that would be helpful is really just like tapping into the five senses, right? So like, what do you see? What do you smell? What do you hear? All of those things. If you put some of those details into your copy, that's going to make it more memorable because people are going to feel like they're actually there. So what could it look like? So you could say, hey, you're going to make more money in your business. Or you could say, hey, it's Friday morning and you have enough money in your bank account to finally pay yourself your old 9-to-5 salary. You can't help but do a little celebratory shimmy because you realize you finally made it as a business owner. And just like I wrote that and I was doing a little celebratory shimmy as I wrote it because it's just something that you can picture. And I bet that as you were listening, you were kind of envisioning a celebratory shimmy and maybe you even do a little celebratory shimmy as you were listening. And that's cool too. But the point is that it's specific, it's a visual, and it's tied to an emotion, right? So even though I'm not saying like you're so proud of yourself for making enough money to pay yourself your 9-to-5 salary, right? But you can see the feelings, you can feel the feelings, right? It's exciting, it's relief, it's pride. There's so many feelings tied up in that moment. And that's what's going to create that emotional connection, is like being able to tap into those moments and create the feeling for the people who are reading it. And I think like one thing that gets people tripped up sometimes is like my ideal client won't relate to that specific moment, right? Maybe they don't relate to paying yourself your 9-to-5 salary, but I would argue that even if they don't relate to that specific moment, to that specific example, they will relate to the emotions. And so there's going to be moments where that ideal client, they did a little celebratory shimmy, right? And so it's okay if they don't have that moment of transferring the money to the bank account, because what it is they have other moments where they feel that pride, where they feel that relief, where they feel that excitement. And that's what you're really tapping into when you are storytelling, is those emotions and building that emotional connection with your people. So the last thing I want to talk about is your brand story. So a note on brand story, I could do like a whole other episode on your brand story. This can either be the story of why you started your business or why you created an offer, what lessons you have learned. It's all about you, but it's not really all about you, right? Because your brand story is about showing your ideal clients that you get it, that your brand story, it should be tied to that bigger overarching story of your dream client, right? So how do you align with their bigger picture? How does your role as the mentor fit into their story? What are the gaps that you saw, and how does that impact the way you show up, right? And sharing your own story of how you got here. What were the emotions that you felt? How do you feel now? That is a great way for you to build your authority, to show what results you've gotten, to show that you are a qualified mentor to get them through the entire journey. So that is the TLDR on storytelling. The most impactful piece is really getting that overarching story down, your messaging, the story that you tell throughout all of your content of your dream client, what they're experiencing, what they want. So if you are wanting to implement storytelling, that is where I would start. And then I would go into the micro moments. The micro moments start to tweak and focus in on specific moments. And that's where you can start to really create these individual pieces of content. If this is something that you struggle with, go ahead and download the copy rubric in the show notes below, because that should help you look at a piece of content or a series, like an email sequence or something like that, and really see, like, do I have my overarching story? And do I have micro moments where I can really grab people's attention and I can really create that connection with them by sharing a story? So that is my spiel on storytelling. I hope it was helpful. If you have any takeaways, go ahead and DM me. I love to hear them. Thank you so much for listening. Please go ahead and rate and review the show. And until next time. That's a wrap on today's episode. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to rate and leave a review on your preferred listening platform. If you haven't, make sure you subscribe for weekly episodes about how to make money and work with the dreamiest of clients without having to get dressed in the morning. Make sure to check out the show notes down below, and I'll see you in the next episode.